Yo, what is up, everybody? My name is Kid Ikarus, and this is my podcast. My guest today is a fantastic pop, R&B, a little bit of hip hop artist. You can find his most recent release, "We're Okay," but F you, over on Spotify. Please welcome Mars Playground.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, and now we are into the actual episode, and I'm going to start the episode off right by making some random noise that nobody wants to hear.
Let's go.
Man, it's been a long, hot day.
That's good.
Here's what I'm saying, though. Have you ever had to comfort people after a death? I'm gonna start off dark. You know how my day's been going, so I'm just gonna jump into it with the dark.
Of course. Yeah, I have. Yeah, I actually had a friend who had a close friend pass away just this week.
Yeah.
So he's kind of going through that.
Oh, just this week?
Yeah, just this week.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, it was a close friend. So I've never personally experienced loss, but it's just it's tough to watch people have to deal with that.
I was telling somebody about this earlier. I start to worry about how I am treating them. I want to do the right thing to try and comfort them, and then I get caught in this loop of criticizing myself because now I'm thinking about myself too much when I should be thinking about them. But the only reason I'm thinking about myself is because I'm trying to figure out the right way for me to act to comfort them. And it becomes this circle of me being like, but you're thinking about yourself too much. But I'm trying to help them. The goal is to help them. Do you relate to that feeling? Do you have any kind of, I don't know, even outside of this specific topic, do you have any kind of cycles of self-criticism or intense self-awareness?
Yeah, like you mean just in general?
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that a little bit recently, honestly.
Okay.
I like to think of myself as self-aware, but I feel like there's people out there who think they're self-aware, especially in LA, Hollywood culture. I feel like people think that they're they know all of their flaws and what to work on and stuff, but they really don't, and they're really just kind of giving this false illusion of being aware and considerate when they're really not, and the real stuff that they need to work on is
I was just talking to a buddy today who we have a mutual friend who was talking to another friend's girlfriend right after they broke up and was hitting on her and stuff, and we were both like, that's not cool, and our friend stopped hanging out with him because of it. And we were talking about how this friend who did that, he has no self-awareness. He won't take any criticism, right? He's done stuff like this before and lost friends over it before, and will not learn and still act like he's a victim because he lost a friend.
Oh, God.
And as I'm criticizing him, I'm going oh, what if I also lack that self-awareness? Because you never know, right? He doesn't know that he lacks self-awareness, because how are you supposed to know? It's it's like the paradox of a crazy person. I feel like that's a thing. People say the thing about being crazy is you don't know you're crazy. And it's the same thing with lacking self-awareness. The thing about lacking self-awareness is you'll never know that that's the case. You'll always think that you are sane.
Yeah, exactly. I guess at the end of the day, if you're just doing your best out here, who is anyone to say what kind of person you are? What
I
mean?
am to say that's my decision. That's the only way I can function. I gotta be just gotta have trust in my own decision making, even if it's completely garbage.
Exactly.
Who knows? It might be. Moving on from that into more lighter subjects. I mean, maybe lighter. It might not be lighter. I mean,
see where it goes.
Your album name is "We're Okay," but F you, that's it's not particularly lighter. It's got a I mean, it's okay, but it's not.
Yeah, it's I kind of wanted the EP to be about like the awkwardness that comes with um like I guess I can go into like the context behind it, right? So like I went through like a really messy breakup last year, and it was like um I'm still like really upset at like my ex over things that went down between us, but I kind of found peace about everything. So like I have like resolution with myself, but like not with the person who's like the source of like all of this like pain and emotional you know angst that I was going through. And so I felt like the name is kind of just like, okay, you and I like separately as individuals are okay. However, we cannot see eye to eye on this, right?
Yeah.
I do not like you as a person. So screw you. um, and I mean, it's also like an inside joke that only she really gets. So that she bought me this like necklace that said "We're okay, I love you" while we were dating. Yeah. So it was really
you turned that into some aggression back at
her.
her.
Yeah. I was gonna make a whole album that was like more like looking positively on the breakup and on the relationship called "We're okay, I love you," and then some stuff went down, and I was just like, yeah, no, man, like, I don't feel this way about you anymore. So, yeah, people always kind of laugh about it and say like, oh, that's a weird name, and I guess that kind of was like the intention,
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I feel like people might have a problem with holding some kind of not resentment, because it doesn't sound like resentment or bitterness. It sounds hey, this relationship I don't need in my life anymore. Which like there's some aggression in that. But like, how many people do you need in your life? Not that many, right?
Exactly.
So it's great to be able to realize like this one not going to be part of my life anymore, and that's better off for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does each of your songs on that is it an EP or is it a full album?
It's an EP.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 tracks.
Does each of the songs play into that in different aspects of that relationship?
I think it's more of like a narrative like journey of like how I kind of coped with it.
Okay.
We're like, or at least I wanted it to be that way. With an interlude kind of just like revealing sort of the narrative nature of it. Like a little skit like halfway through it. But it kind of starts off with me being sort of very like not malicious, but like aggressive, not even aggressive, just yes, yeah, all of those things. Honestly, I said some pretty messed up stuff in that first track. But I'm kind of saying, hey, y'all, you can be happy, but I'm eager to see when everything comes around. And then track 2 is sort of me still sort of reeling in that negative energy and saying, oh, I also like hope, or like sort of taunting my ex, saying like, okay, I'm not over this. But I bet you wish I was, because you're manipulative, blah, blah, blah. And then so the interlude is like a more like vulnerable side of me, and sort of the point where I realize like I'm kind of putting off a little like front of like, yeah, like I'm all cool about this, I cut you off, I'm chilling, but like no, not really, like I'm actually really hurt by this. And I've really like and starting to realize like a piece of my identity was lost in that relationship. Or I never really had an identity in a relationship, and as a result I never got to grow as a person, and now this is like my opportunity to do that. And sort of the last track is that sort of act 3 resolution, saying like, okay, like I'm cool, I'm fine, maybe we can be friends one day, maybe we can resolve this. So it's a whole journey.
I like you saying that the first track is, you say some pretty messed up stuff in that. I love the dichotomy in certain artists where it is such pleasant sounding music
Mm-hmm.
mixed with aggressive dark lyrics.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite artists, older pop punk artists, the
Mm.
songs where they would do that, where they would make pop punk songs with just aggressively hateful lyrics. I was like, yes.
Oh
If you ever
yeah.
heard the first track off of Fall Out Boy's "Take This to Your Grave," tell that Mick he just made my list of some of things to do. I think
Right.
that's the name of the song.
Mm-hmm.
It has lines like when you hit that tree, your makeup looks so good next to his teeth and stuff like that, where it's
Yeah.
like talking about I just fantasies about the girl dying in
Exactly.
horrific ways, but like it's super upbeat, positive
Yeah.
sounding music, and I just think it's hilarious.
Yeah. No, Fall Out
Um,
Boy's like the king of doing that.
yeah,
Like,
right.
yeah, like I love their like second album from the Cork Tree. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it's just full of stuff like that. Just
Oh,
like cheap, like little tongue in cheek
yeah.
lyrics.
I
Just
think that like Pete Wentz's lyrics are just so he does something great where he is full of self-doubt and arrogance at the same time. Like
yeah.
his like bravado in his music is something that I don't think is common in like alternative music. Like he has a
Mm-hmm.
bravado that's like it's almost like a hip hop bravado. Like he is
Yeah.
so full of himself in a lot of his lyrics, and
It's true.
it's so tongue in cheek. Like it's clearly not how he actually feels, but like
Yeah.
it's a mix of how he actually
Yeah.
feels, like a satire of himself. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah,
Yeah. It's kind of like you're watching him like cope with everything.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You mentioned it in about your album, like the first couple tracks is that like putting up that shield,
Yeah.
putting up that bravado. I made an EP a while ago that I never released because it was too personal and I didn't want people to be like, hey, this song's about this, and be like, nope, I didn't want to have to clear things up, you know.
Yeah.
But about similar things, about like the process of like being hurt and then putting up a front that's like, no, I'm gonna be a gangster now because I do hip hop, so I lean
Yeah.
into just typical hip hop tropes of like, no, I'm a boss, I'm a
Yeah.
dominate everything, and I think that that is the male way of coping with hurt. You go
It's
like,
true.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
feel this. I'm just gonna overcome it, like because I'll look back at it
Yeah.
and it'll be a speck in my past, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. A lot of that is, yeah, men are kind of taught to like, oh, what? You're like in your feels over this? Why? Like
yeah,
you're a dude.
yeah.
Go make
Don't.
some money, bro.
Yeah,
Go to the
exactly.
gym. You know,
This
it's
isn't
like,
important.
yeah.
Like, what are you caring about a woman for? Like,
Yeah.
that's not that's not manly to care
Exactly.
about women. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Especially in hip hop too.
yeah.
It's like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, there's so many layers that you have to pick apart before you get to like the
yeah.
really core of like what's going on.
For as much as I love hip hop music, there's a lot of things in the lyricisms and messages of it that is either done really well as like satire or like a critique of that kind of culture, or is done like genuinely and it's like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
You can't be acting like that. There's because there's like there's genuine objectification of women in hip hop, and then
Oh.
there's the satirical side of it. I think where
Mm.
it's same with party music. Like there's some party music where it is
Yeah.
genuinely guys who like to do a lot of drugs and party, and then there's some party music where it's so like over the top where it's clear like, oh, these guys are kind of like messing around, like this isn't
Yeah.
actually them.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. It doesn't really take itself too
yeah,
seriously, you know?
the weird like 90s hip hop, like the Snoop Dogs and Nate Dogs of like, it ain't fun if the homies can't get none. Like that's so weird to me. Like it's not fun. Like if you're not sharing, that's strange. I'm gonna keep her all to myself. That's how I have fun. Like, um, yeah. So do you make the music for your tracks?
Yeah, yeah. So I write, record, produce, mix, master everything from the ground up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with very few exceptions.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wild. It comes out sounding very very
Thank you.
nice.
Yeah.
The tone that you have in those guitars throughout the EP is
Oh,
just, yeah, it's so smooth and like almost like watery. but not. I say that, but it's not like it has some major chorus or reverb on it that makes it actually
Right.
sound watery. It's just like the thickness of the guitar kind of wraps you in, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Particularly on that first track, um, Bleach Blonde, is that what it's called?
Beach Blonde.
Beach Blonde.
Beach Blonde
Okay,
hair. Yeah.
yeah. Because hearing the guitars, it sounds like waves at a beach. Like
Yeah.
it works
Exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been playing guitar?
I started when I was 14.
Okay.
So I'm about 9 years in now. It was like guy that my dad was working for was like moving out of his house and was just getting rid of stuff. And I was just like, hey, here's this red electric guitar. It probably costs like $20.
Okay. Yeah. It's like some
it was a piece of junk. Yeah.
Imitation Strat or something.
Honestly, something like that. Yeah. Just gave it to my dad. My dad gave it to me, and I used it as like decoration in my room for a few months. You know, I didn't really think much of it. I tried to learn guitar like when I was like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But nothing came out of that. And I got really bored. Like the summer before like I started high school. So I was just like, all right, let's just take this on. Yeah. So yeah, it was just me, that, shitty guitar and YouTube. And
what kind of music were you listening to at that time?
I was listening to a lot of like pop punk, metalcore. Yeah, A Day to
Okay.
Remember, 100%. That was like, that got me through.
So was this
grade, honestly
during like 2011 or so? So
this is 2014.
2014.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2014.
So after like what, Common Courtesy or?
Yeah. Common Courtesy was what got me into, I think, City of Ocala.
Okay.
Yep,
Yeah.
that was like, I listened to that. I was like, whoa. Like it summoned something within me, and I just went through the entire discography. Like,
yeah.
I would play Homesick like nonstop.
Yeah, that's another band that I was thinking of when I said pop punk bands with violent lyrics, because you should have killed me when you had the chance. The like ending part of they'll find you on the bathroom floor. Like that. That's
so
section.
Catchy.
It is so catchy.
Where you have it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, bro.
Yeah, there's a few tracks on that. He has a song with the breakdown at the end, says something like, "Stop cutting your wrists and slit your throat." And I love it. I love that over the top violence. Yeah. I went to see them at a Warped Tour in 2011, and my friends were big fans of them. And I went to Warped Tour to see the rapper Greaves. And Reliant Cave. Those were the two bands that I was like stoked to see. But my friends were like, "Oh yeah, Devil Wears Prada is going to be there. August Burns Red, and A Day to Remember is the like headliner." And I had heard like Downfall of Us All on like Fuse back in the day, the like like, off-brand MTV.
Yeah.
That was on. They used to have commercials for that on there a lot, like for Downfall of Us All.
Yeah.
And then like Have Faith in Me was played on K-Rock a lot when it came out. And so those were like the only two tracks I knew. And then I went to their show and it blew me away, even though like it was such a big show that I don't think I saw them at all.
Really?
Like I was too far away to make out anybody on stage.
Just hearing the music.
Yeah, just heard the music and was smashed between people. And I'm not particularly tall, so like I couldn't see anything. But it was fantastic show.
Yeah.
They had a circle pit going around the sound booth. They have the like sound booth in the middle of the field and the circle pit going around it.
I've never actually went to like an ADTR concert or like a metalcore concert, like any snap. I didn't have the money like growing up.
They are by far the best shows. Like I said, I love hip hop. I've been trying to find a way to bring the vibe that you get at a hardcore show into hip hop and other genres, because like you feel so engaged at hardcore shows in a way that you can't in other genres, because you don't have the dancing to it.
Right.
Like the dancing at a hip hop show is something way more you have to be good at it, I feel like, or you have to not care if you look dumb at least. But
Yeah.
like hardcore, it's more about surviving, and
Yeah.
like there's like three different types of dance, but like once you're in there, you catch on quick, and like everybody does it. Like the whole
Yeah.
culture is about it, and so like you're actively participating in it in a way that you aren't in any other show, and
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
fantastic. That there's I'll shoot you links when I go to hardcore shows. I'll shoot you some links,
Sure, man.
flyers. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I'd love to.
there's this band Doulos. I've had their guitarist on a couple times. He was on a normal episode like this, and then I had a Christmas party last Christmas, and had a few guests on for that. But they're this hardcore band out of Redlands, and I saw him in a church a while ago, and it's just fantastic. They're both the guitarists came out off of the stage during one of their songs and like danced around in the pit for a while, which is terrifying because
Of course.
guitar in hand is like, oh, bro.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so fun. So you were listening to that kind of stuff then, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and how did were you playing mostly that kind of stuff? Like, how did you get? What
Yeah.
influenced you to start playing like the like cleaner guitars instead of heavy
Yeah.
distorted
So
guitars?
yes, I mean, at first when I started learning, like it was a lot of power chords, drop
Drop
tuning.
D,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Drop
Drop
D.
C,
I
drop
tried drop
B's.
C. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. I was recording like a lot of like random like hardcore
Chugga
songs.
chuggas.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. On GarageBand on iPad. And
Nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's still how I record today.
Yeah, no, it's a godsend,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. Um, so that's where I learned like a lot of the basics of like mixing, engineering. And I'm not sure exactly where the switch like started, but I think I started falling for this girl in high school who was like really into like indie rock.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, just like knew like every single band there is to know in existence. Like I would discover a band that nobody's ever heard of, and they'd be like, trying to impress her, I'd be like, "Oh, dude, you listen to this song?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I love that band. I really like this song." And then that song's like even better than the one I found. And I'm like,
Yeah.
"All right, damn." So, um, I think that's where I started sort of like hearing more less about um like the noise or like the crazy like distorted like sound of a guitar, more like about the I guess like the more overtony aspect
Yeah.
of it. My vocab's a little not
Yeah,
advanced,
the
but
more
like
like intricate harmonies and the
yeah, yeah,
flowiness of it.
exactly, yeah, yeah. I started looking more into like cooler like chord progressions
Yeah.
and like you chord styles, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. So yeah, somewhere that was probably around 2017, 2018 when I
Okay.
started getting like I think the riff for Hey Baby, actually I wrote like my senior year of high school.
Okay.
And that was just me messing around with like two strings, just like seeing what would happen.
What were these like indie rock bands that you were listening to? Is it like the Echo Smiths?
It was a lot of Strokes actually. Like
Okay.
Strokes, Deer Hunter is a really big one for me. Like Strokes like solo work, like Albert Hammond Jr.
Deer Hunter,
Um,
they have a they're kind of like a theatrical sound. Is that who I'm thinking of?
um,
Um,
maybe
okay.
you could say so. It's a lot more like ethereal, like
Okay.
atmospheric. Like they use a
Yeah.
lot of like pad synths and stuff.
Okay. I
Yeah,
might be thinking of a different Deer Hunter.
yeah,
Um,
maybe.
yeah, or a different album. The bands changed their sound, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Um,
haven't listened to them too like recently, but Duplex Planet was like I just had on repeat in high
mhm.
school.
um,
Um,
yeah, the Strokes, I mean, is an example of that where like it's hard to know the Strokes sound. I feel like the Strokes sound like when I picture them, I think Last Night. Is that the kind of stuff you were
last night,
listening
yeah,
to?
yeah, yeah.
That like
Last
first
night,
album?
first out. I really like Room on Fire.
Okay.
I find like I really like the second albums of like bands.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about the energy, but it's like first album sound, but more like concentrated.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you ever, you know what I mean? So
I
like,
understand exactly.
yeah.
I talked to my dad about this. Like he's like, I love a band's first album because it's really rough. They haven't really figured things out, and then it gets too polished over time. And I am the same way where like he loves Kill 'Em All by Metallica. He thinks that's their best album. I think Ride the Lightning. Ride the Lightning? Yeah, that's the name of the album. Yeah, Ride the Lightning is the better album because it's a little more polished than Kill 'Em All, but hasn't changed into a different sound yet. And yeah, I think a lot of bands are like that, where the second album is their early style, but at a level that they weren't able to achieve on the first attempt. Yeah. I think that bands have a tendency to, once they at the beginning they're really like just trying to make stuff, and then by the second album comes around, they've figured out how to make stuff, so now they're trying to make stuff that appeals to people, like they understand like we can still keep what we have and then make it catchy and poppy and make people like it, and then they realize that people like them, and they go, now it's time to change stuff up and make people hate us.
Honestly.
They release that third album that's just too experimental,
or they or they fall down the rabbit hole of just like, okay, let's just make like corporate BS that stuff everybody likes. I'll get radio plays and stuff.
It's funny. I feel like that is the type of band that are the most hated, are the ones who can consistently put out songs that are radio hits, but nobody's actual favorite song. They're songs that everybody likes and can sing along to, but it's always like, I don't know, it's a good song. It's a good song. I like it. Because that's the story of Nickelback and then the story of Imagine Dragons. Where like both of them, like when the first hit came out, everyone was like, okay, someday that's a pretty good song. Radioactive, I like it. And then by the time the third hit came out, everyone was like, okay, they're making hits.
Just feeling forced down my throat. But good for y'all.
It's on every car commercial. Like, I just want to buy a car without hearing generic radio rock. I was watching Crunchyroll yesterday. I'm not a big anime person, but I watched. Have you ever seen Super Eye Patch Wolf on YouTube?
No, I haven't.
He does like video essays, and they're fantastic. They take the whole video essay format to another level. He might just be British, and I like hearing British people talk for an hour. But he had a video about Dragon Ball Z and about why it was so influential in cartoons and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'll give it a chance. So I'm watching Crunchyroll, and every commercial break, there's a commercial for an anime made by Acura that's like about, it's like a Speed Racer style anime that Acura produces on their website.
So it's like a whole like series?
From what I can see, it's at least a, like, what do they call it? At least a mini series.
What the hell?
About a girl named Chiaki that races Acuras.
Oh.
I don't know if I hate it or if I love it. Like, it might be fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I would love the gall of a company that makes like a highly produced, like, emotional story that's like just to sell their cars. Like, all right, I'll buy an Acura, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like, I guess you can't knock it until you watch it.
Right.
I'll have to check that out. What's it called?
I don't know what it's called. I know it's made by Acura.
It's made by Acura. Okay.
And it's about a girl named Chiaki, Chiaki. And like here's the thing, like, there was multiple commercials for different episodes. So I know there's more than one episode.
Yeah.
And they mentioned like this isn't Long Beach, and I was like, oh snap, a call out for Long Beach. Like, what is going on in this anime? But I think it's because there's like the Long Beach Speedway races. Pikes Peak isn't Long Beach. You're gonna get lost in these mountains, Chucky. You're gonna get lost driving your Acura in these mountains. I don't know how we got on that topic. But you were making some indie rock because a girl you liked was into indie rock, and you were trying to.
Yeah. I wasn't making the song specifically for her,
But
at
you,
least at the
you
time.
had got into the music
Yeah,
because of
yeah,
her.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, it just kind of snowballed into like, oh, let me actually make music based on this genre.
yeah,
So yeah, and I guess around that same time, I'd also gotten like back into hip hop
yeah,
too. So
yeah.
like those were kind of melding
Blending
together a little bit.
together.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I was making like music at the time. I wiped all of that off the face of the earth. It sounded terrible, but
Yeah.
stuff that kind of had like the like energy of like like indie rock, even like emo stuff that I was listening
Mm-hmm.
to, but injected into more like hip hop oriented
Okay.
like production.
Yeah,
So
that was pretty big for a minute.
yeah,
The Nothing Nowheres and Juice Worlds and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, and I think Dominic Fike really went to town on that.
yeah.
Just like melding the two together.
Yeah, I enjoy both of those musics, and I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to blend styles that I like
Yeah,
without it sounding cheesy, and it's so hard.
yeah,
Like
it really is.
like it's hard to make authentic hip hop with distorted guitars because it ends up
Hmm.
sounding like Limp Bizkit or something. And that's
Yeah,
that's not to knock Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit's one of the greatest bands of all time, and I will die on that hill.
yeah. Shout out Limp
Um,
Bizkit. Yeah,
but
yeah,
not the style I want to
yeah.
make.
Guess we're thinking more like Linkin Park.
I mean that I'm picking Limp Bizkit over Linkin Park. I know that
Really?
I
All right. Okay.
Hybrid Theory's a classic. It's
Yeah.
actually like Hybrid Theory is one of the albums that like I knew a guitarist when I was in high school that
Mm-hmm.
could play every Blink 182 song. And I was
Mm.
like, there's not really a band that like I'm that into, but I think Hybrid Theory front to back is a perfect album. So I'm gonna learn every song off of Hybrid Theory. And I did for a while. I knew how to play every song, which isn't saying much because they're like super basic.
Yeah,
But
yeah, but
I mean, I still tell people like people who don't understand because I've got some friends who make music but don't understand song structure. Like they
mm,
do a hook, a verse, a hook, and then they are done with their song. And I tell them like that's not how a song works.
yeah,
And I tell them like Hybrid Theory, listen to Hybrid Theory because they have perfect song structure, and that's why like it sold so well. Like
yeah,
it's you understand when there's a verse, you understand when there's a chorus, there's variation in between like how many of them are in each song and whether there's a pre-chorus or not or whether there's a bridge. um but like they stick close enough to like perfect song structure that like almost every song on there could be a single, like
exactly.
yeah. um but like I was saying, like it's hard to blend styles genuinely. It ends
Yeah,
up sounding forced.
yeah. Like
um
there's so much in common, but it's so hard to get like that delicate combo
yeah,
because it's
right.
so delicate.
Yeah, it is like in hip hop and metal music, both aggressive music.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say this a lot because I am more on the punk side of metalcore than the metal side.
Sure.
Um, Punk music and hip hop music, both like underprivileged, angsty music,
Exactly.
but trying to blend them, they're completely different sounds. Like hip hop
Yeah.
is, I mean, so much jazz influence in the hip hop beats that I like particularly. I mean, I know like if you're making crunk music, it's not as jazz inspired. That might be an easier blend. But like the hip hop I like is really mellow jazz influence. It's laid back. It has these long kind of slow BPM, long rhythms. Punk on the other side, super distorted, throws away all the classical influences and
Yeah.
just goes to town. And it's like I have no idea how to blend those things at all.
Exactly.
Is there a ethos in your music that is like the intended environment that you're trying to create? Like if you had a show with your exact target audience in the crowd, what
Mm.
would that audience be like?
Ooh, it's a good question. I feel like I've always wanted to play my music like at like a large festival.
Okay, yeah.
Lala, Rolling Loud, Coachella, whatever it may be. Like I always envisioned that my music would sound really good blaring over those speakers, and would be, I guess, most receptive to like
Yeah.
people that go there. You know, I guess
Okay.
18 to 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know,
Young,
yeah,
attractive drug
yeah,
peoples.
may or may not be, tripping off of LSD.
Yeah.
I've had people tell me that my music sounds really good on drugs. So
Yeah. I can see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
understand that. Um, you don't know. You're
Yeah,
not a drug person.
I don't do drugs to like make music. I don't really do drugs in general.
Yeah.
Um, I don't knock people that do, of
Not a
course. Yeah.
smoker.
No, I mean, I tried it a couple times. It wasn't really for me, but I'll do it every once in a while. I drink a little bit, just like casually, socially.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've never found it to like help like the creative process. I think
Oh,
it's yeah,
definitely not.
yeah,
I think that is the people who say that just want an excuse to do drugs.
yeah.
Like I don't buy it at all.
Yeah, I can see like from their perspective, like I think it just like it clears their minds
Yeah, I
and
think
just helps
there's
them.
I may be biased in this respect.
Sure.
Well, first off, you're festival people. I have this deep seated prejudice against them
Oh.
for being cool people because I was never cool, you know. So I'm like these cool
Yeah.
kids, but regardless of that, I I am somebody who is highly self-conscious. I think is the right word to use. Like not insecure type of self-conscious, just constantly conscious of myself
Hmm.
and how I'm being perceived and stuff. I think that people who aren't self-conscious do better on drugs. Like
Mm.
they're able to function. They're probably able to be creative because they aren't worried about how they're being perceived. Where like if I take drugs, I used to take drugs. I don't take drugs anymore. I don't. I promise. I'm good, guys. I'm clean. Um, like if I take drugs, I'm too in my own head to do anything. I start like doubting myself, and then I'm like, all right, I'm giving up. Like it's too much. Like it's too much work. I'm just gonna chill and just be a receptor instead of a
Mm.
projector. So so maybe with some people it does affect their creativity.
Yeah.
Music, in my experience, playing music on a drug is super fun, or
Mm.
listening to it. The actual writing process, I don't know. I am particularly not fond of writing in general. Do you? I tell people like I don't like writing. I like having things written. Like I like being
Mm.
done with the writing process and being like, this is it.
Oh,
This is it.
yeah.
The actual process of writing I find really frustrating. Do you
Uh,
relate to that?
I think it's like it's a mix. It depends on the situation because
Yeah.
like I do love writing. I love getting my thoughts out.
Yeah.
Um, but I definitely like so many times I'll just hit like a block and
Yeah.
like I have to like just put a project away for like a week, a month,
Mm-hmm.
even like a year. I mean, it was the same with Hey Baby. Like I just had like a GarageBand file with the riff and like some like basic drums
Yeah.
sitting on my iPad for like 5 years. And I was like, okay, let's re-record this.
Mm-hmm.
I just got really bored one day and was like, maybe High School Mars has something to say about this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, yeah, it's just it's like can't live with it, can't live without it, kind of like love hate
I
relationship.
get that. Yeah.
Um, so, but I do love looking at like the final project
Yeah.
and realizing that that's a whole like thought process like encased. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's like the best thing for me because that also helps me like make sense of like what's going on in here.
Yeah.
Like it just like I feel like I always have trouble like understanding my emotions when I'm in the midst of a situation.
Yeah.
So then once I finish like writing about it, I'm like, oh, okay, this is my position on this. This
Mm-hmm.
is like why I've been feeling this way. This is like, I can use this to like help me like grow as a person.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting whenever an artist is working on a collection of songs for an album, how themes for the overall album start to come together like accidentally,
Mm-hmm.
because like everything that comes from an artist, no matter how much of a character they're playing, is themselves. And no matter how much they try to stick to one idea, it takes time to write. And so by the time the project is finished, like the ending song is gonna have a different version of themselves who wrote it than the first song. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they've changed over the process of making it.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that kind of difference in how an artist is at the beginning of a project and at the end.
Yeah.
And like how it's not, it doesn't have to be intentional to show change in the story throughout work, because like the person's going to change anyways, and it's a result of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have started to make projects that are I try to make it an overall story now. Like my first project as Kid Icarus was a mixtape, and the songs were just kind of random. I when I decided to make music as Kid Icarus, I specifically, like the first song I wrote, I was like, I'm just gonna write about the things I like, which is mostly cartoons and hardcore music. Like that was the theme of the first song that I wrote. It was like, yeah, I like cartoons, I like hardcore music, I like Jack Kerouac books, and like so the whole album was just random stuff that I liked to talk about. I was like, oh, just do that. And then the next EP was trying to make more of a overarching story, and then this last EP that I've been working on for the last couple of months, same thing, overarching storyline. Where like now I tell people like I think of my projects as seasons in a cartoon, because I think of my life as a cartoon, because I think that that's a genuine way to see life. I don't think we see life as live action. I think it's all distorted by our emotions.
Oh yeah,
like stretched.
That's a cool way to think about it. Yeah,
it's colored. So like all my works, they're cartoon versions of each season of my life. This season one, this season two, you can see the cartoon character grow over the course of the season and stuff.
Yeah. Of course, stuff's like dramatized. Exaggerated.
Everything's
maybe.
blown out of proportion. It's all different colors because it's not real. It's just the way my mind projects it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I am kind of obsessed with how with story and how characters change and stuff. Do you know Joseph Campbell? Have you ever like done any?
I don't think so.
No, Joseph Campbell was I don't even know what his field would have been called. Comparative mythology, I think, is what he was. He studied in like the 50s. He took all these different mythological stories from history and found this common theme, the hero's journey. Like he was the person who codified what the hero's journey was. And like when I found out about that, like I became obsessed with like plugging in all these stories to the hero's journey
and making like archetypes and stuff.
It's beautiful to me how like every work, how people change. Like that's what I find really really meaningful, is the way that people change over time and the lessons that they learn. I don't know how to connect this back to what we were talking to, but what do you think about people changing?
I think like people always say like, oh, leopard can't change its spots, like some people never change, but I do definitely believe in like the elasticity of like human behavior. Like you'll do something one way today, but a few years from now in the exact same situation, you'll probably take a different path because you'll have like different like wants and needs.
Here's a question I got for you. Here's a question.
Go for it.
And this is one that do you think people have free will?
Oh, I think with limited exceptions, and I'm gonna try to circle back to like what you asked me, but I think with limited exceptions, I think like if you were born in my situation, if I was born in your situation, we would both turn out to be like each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you were born like, I guess with my genes, if you looked like me, but like, our like minds were just switched.
Yeah, whatever our consciousness is.
Yeah. Like we'd still become like you would basically be me and I would basically be you.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think like yes, we have free will, but like a lot of what we do is just a product of exactly like where we are, like in
Yeah.
space, in time.
I am very hard against free will. I don't really
Mm.
believe in it. I say that it is a subjective phenomenon, not an objective one.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's only something we say when we say talk about free will, talk about making choices. It is
Mm-hmm.
purely our experiencing the choices that ourselves make. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're the observer, observing the choices we make. We don't actually
Yeah.
make the choices.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we're like responding to like the same like stimuli in
Yeah,
different positions.
yeah, yeah. It's the dominoes falling, but we
Mm.
experience the dominoes falling. Like
Mm.
we don't tell the dominoes where to go, but
Yeah.
we experience the act of feeling like we choose where the dominoes go. Also, like it's one of those things where the best course of action, I think, is to act as if it's true. Because I think that if you act like free will doesn't exist, you may condemn yourself to live in whatever situation you're in and
Mm.
resist change. Where if you act as if it exists, even if it doesn't, then you can still have the benefits of it existing.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but yeah, maybe
Yeah,
it's
it's a
not
tricky
even your
thing.
choice to believe in it existence. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I like to think about. I like to think about absurdly deep philosophical things that have no bearings on my life. That way, I
Of
can feel
course.
in control of my life even when I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. If
yeah.
I think about things, then I have a grasp on things. But I don't. I don't have no grasp
Yeah.
on anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I like to think we can control stuff,
yeah.
but yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, we are just specks in a giant like
Yeah.
cosmos,
The
you
the
know.
most I I'm convinced that the story overall is the best story. You know what I'm saying? We're specks in the story, but we're all important characters.
Yeah.
We're all the main character. I think we're all the main character. There's this thing on the internet. People talk about main character syndrome,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I hate it. I hate it so much because I think it's ignorant of literature. Because they act like the main character can do whatever he wants, and there's no consequences, and
Yeah.
they don't have to learn. But like that's the whole point of
Yeah,
the
it is.
main character.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
deal with consequences from their actions and they have to
Exactly.
learn and evolve and stuff. So I'm like, yeah, we should all think of ourselves as the main character. That way we pay attention to the
Yeah.
consequences and learn from it and
Exactly.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the story overall, in the end, we're gonna look back at it and be like, that's the greatest story ever told. Existence. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
You can tell why I needed to stop doing drugs because this is me sober right now.
Yeah.
And this
Take shrooms and you just
it's too
try
many
to cure
thoughts.
cancer.
So many thoughts I get paralyzed. Um, so what has your experience been pushing your project, performing? How's the
Mhm.
growth of Mars Playground been?
Um. Yeah.
Let's go back to when did you start being Mars Playground? How did you pick that name? What did you?
Yeah. So, well, I picked the name when I was like 17,
Okay.
and that's when I started making music with the intent of like eventually releasing it.
Okay. Yeah.
It was just based on a dream I had when I was 11. That I was on not a playground on Mars. It was actually a bouncy house because I
Okay.
was like 11, and I guess I still thought they were cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
you say that like you don't think they're cool anymore.
I mean, they're cool. Like a sanitary perspective, they seem kind of weird. Like
I kind of get
bunch
that.
of
Yeah.
bunch of kids, running around
Oh, the
barefoot,
kids make it
like in
worse.
in
Yeah.
an enclosed like
I'm
area.
saying they're cool
Yeah.
without the kids.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
an adult. Honestly, that would be dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
so what we're discovering here is the bouncy house is not the problem. Children are the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're in
Tale
Mars.
as old as time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was on Mars in a bouncy house, just like hanging out with like all of like my closest friends at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool. It's the most fun I had in my entire life. And so I decided to name myself after that because it just reminds me of when I felt really free and when, I guess it reminds me of like my dream of
Yeah.
like becoming an artist who, like uh enjoys basking in like the love and support of like other people. Um, of course, like Mars Bouncy House didn't really like the name didn't really stick. Yeah. So Mars Playground was like, it's kind of like, oh, what? It's like it's just weird enough to like catch people off guard, but it's like it's just refined enough that you're like, oh, okay, dope, do your thing, bro. So that was the origin of the name, and then before I started making music, I was like I was playing music in high school. I went to a Catholic school, and so I was in this like liturgical like band that played contemporary like Christian rock covers.
Awesome.
Yeah, for like student like masses.
Yeah. That's so I went to Christian school, so basically the same thing, but less idolatry.
Yeah.
That's just me throwing shade.
No, you're good. No, I'm not. I don't think I consider myself Catholic anymore. Yeah. Definitely somewhere in the spectrum, like Christian.
Yeah.
But I was definitely Catholic at the time. And so that kind of made like the idea of making like music or like playing music, like religiously kind of like fulfilling for me. I was like, okay, like this is me doing my due diligence, and so that also kind of like sort of defined like my passion for like performing specifically. Because like I would just like perform like all these like random songs. I didn't necessarily like them, but they were cool to play, and like I was like the director of like the band at one point, so like I was kind of like helping like put the whole like show together every month or so. And it was just cool to like just like see how like music was like a community and stuff.
I think that like being raised in the church, I think sets people up for a career in music. I think that there's you can find lots of examples of famous singers who were church choir kids.
Katy Perry, was like a big one.
Yeah,
she started off as a Christian singer.
Beyonce, choir singer.
Yeah, pretty much any R&B singer.
Yeah, like, and it from the musician side, like it's rare that you have 13, 14, 15-year-old kids playing sets every single week. Like that's a lot of time to like work on your instrument and kind of figure things out. It's basic. You have to kind of push it to bring it to a higher level of like artistry, but like you do pick up tricks along the way where it's like if you weren't putting in this much time doing it, you want to learn the tricks.
It's like it's a whole like process, like putting together like a set list. I mean, with like mass, everything's like super like strict. It's like, okay, you have the opening, you have the psalms, you have the communion song. That was like the coolest one because it's like the most like heartfart and emotional and stuff. You get the closing, which is like the fun one. Do whatever you want. So I mean, part of me, I guess, I think maybe like that influenced a lot of like how I approach like putting together a set. And I think that definitely helped me as a performer, just the experience of that.
I watched this this documentary on YouTube, like a YouTube documentary a while back about problems in Christian music. Like there's a lot of stories of like how Christian people are constantly being volunteers for stuff, like being a roadie and stuff, and there's this pressure of like, well, you're doing it for God. You're not doing it for money, even though like they're working like a lot of hours, But within that documentary, they started talking about like how Christian music is created for what they referred to as like emotional manipulation, and like that's kind of a cynical way to look at it, but that learning that process of playing that music, you do pick up the idea of like, all right, here's the like slow verse, here's the first chorus, which is still kind of slow, but maybe the drums came in, and then the full kit comes in the second verse, and the second chorus is real big, and then you have a real low bridge, and the bridge starts building and building, then you have a big powerful bridge, and then that last big powerful chorus, and then it dies down at the end. Like that structure of the song, when you pick it up, you're like, oh yeah, this is how you make people feel stuff. You do this specific song structure, and they just get worked up emotionally.
It's like a very specific roller coaster ride. It kind of hits every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think calling it emotional manipulation cynical. That's just how
Yeah.
music works. That's what music
Yeah,
is.
music is kind of a form of emotional manipulation
It
because
is. It is
it's
kind
trying
of.
to bring out specific emotions in
Yeah.
you. You try to like you work with that, and I guess you know I can't really see that being used to like. Well, I guess maybe it has been in the past. I can't think of specific examples where it's been used to sway people towards like a negative path,
Yo,
or at least
I'll tell
intentionally.
you what, man. I recently heard the music produced by Jim Jones,
Jim Jones.
the Kool
Oh,
Aid
the oh that
Cole.
guy.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's fantastic. It's like some of the best gospel music I've ever heard. It's so good.
Oh God.
So it has been used,
Yeah, yeah.
but hey, that's the war we're in, right? That's the war as musicians.
Yeah.
We got to make the better music for a more positive outcome.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's evil's gonna try and use the same weapons that we got.
Of course.
Yeah. So you were making music in your Catholic school, and
I was kind of on the side
mm-hmm.
while I was performing.
Okay,
obviously not my
those were
music.
your early days of performing. Or you
Yeah.
said you were 17, so still at Catholic high school.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
What was your? When did you first put out a project? And
So what was it? I was in
how was that experience?
Yeah, it's in 2018. I released a couple singles that eventually led up to this EP called "Shooting the Breeze."
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, everything, like a lot of the stuff that I made early on, I've wiped off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
I cannot hear it without cringing and just wanting to crawl into a hole until I decease.
I'll tell you what, man. I used to go by MC Misfit back in high school, and all my MC Misfit music, I have tried to wipe away. I think there are still some on YouTube's, but
we still have like friends that are like, bro, remember?
Oh yeah, the very first song that I recorded was the one that friends latched onto and was like, that's a hit right there. And like it was so embarrassing. It was called "Return the Favor," and my friends would shout it at me, "Return the favor!" Like when they would see me, it became a calling card. It was super poppy, and so it caught on. But yeah, I understand.
Looking back on it,
looking back, yeah. And I tried so much. Like my sound with every single song was a completely different genre. It was all hip hop, but like a completely different genre of hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were like, "Oh, I was onto something there," and some of them were like, "That was a ridiculous idea. That's not the sound you should go for." With so you put out this music when you were 17, completely embarrassing. Now that you've gotten up to "We're Okay But Fu," like what's your plan right now? Do you got shows coming up? Are you pushing it? Are you throwing it to radio shows?
Right. So I mean, I did a little promotion cycle like early this year, like January, February, just like sending it to like playlist curators, whatever link I could find, just trying to get them put on blogs and stuff. Didn't really work.
Okay.
I think also I struggle with figuring out like content creation for my own page. It's just like it's weird. Yeah, it's a weird thing to navigate. It's like how much of like it's like constantly like having to choose between like stuff that like will eventually get views and stuff that like still like maintains like self dignity.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just like a constant like battle, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I've been doing shows since like I moved here in January, actually. And I've done a few shows. I just did one for Breaking Sound.
Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from South Florida.
Okay.
Broward County, Fort Lauderdale. I lived in Chicago for a few years. I went to college there, and then I spent like 3 months last year in Austin living with my brother.
Okay.
And then in January, I moved out of my brother's place into my sister's place in LA. So that's where I am right now.
Cool.
So yeah, just lived like everywhere, and I didn't really start like really like taking the music thing seriously until probably about last year, when I was like, okay, I've officially decided this is what I want to do. I wanted to do a couple things like artistically, like I wanted to be like a filmmaker for a little bit, or like a comedian. As I was doing stand up for a hot minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How was it?
Yeah, it was good. I'd like to think I was pretty good at it.
I was just talking to a comedian last night. I played this show with comedy. There's nothing more naked than a comedian.
Honestly, yeah.
Like as a musician, you get to like hide behind your music and everything's choreographed and set. You know your plan. But comedian, like you have your jokes, but you work it and you change it up every time, and there's no music behind you, so you have to figure out the rhythm yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Yeah, most of the time you have to talk about really sensitive topics.
Yeah,
like some of the best comics are just talking about like trauma that they've experienced and trying to make that into a joke is like crazy.
Yeah.
So no, full like 100% like respect to like all the like the stand-ups out there.
It's rough. Yeah. That's especially like those people who are just starting out and aren't good. Like they have to deal with knowing that their ideas are not reciprocated by the crowd. Like that's a rough thing to recognize.
Yeah, a joke that falls on a crowd that just gets like a polite chuckle is like the worst.
It's like the experience of being like, I find this funny and relatable. What about you? And everybody being like, no, that's weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's so rough. That's heartbreaking. No. So we've reached the end of the episode. I could sit here and talk for a while, but like we've crossed the hour mark. So I always give the opportunity at the end for my guests to shout out somebody. I just said before, like just shout out anyone, but I'm going to limit it to one people from here on out. So one specific name, that way I can like add it to the bottom of the video or something, make sure that people check them out. So who would you like to shout out? Who isn't getting enough recognition?
Yeah, well, I've met so many people since moving here. Yeah. They're like amazing musicians. I can name like a million, but I really need to shout out Keene Visions. Have you met Keene?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. He goes to a lot of like Something Dope events. Artist, painter, like producer, rapper, engineer, everything. Does everything, but he's been doing a lot for like the hip hop scene here, putting on like a lot of like showcases. And I've met like some amazing talent through that. I've been making some music with him too. So, I mean, I really just need to give a shout out to Keene Visions. Like
right on.
Keene Visions on Instagram. I'm pretty sure everywhere else. He's really like, I haven't told him this yet, but he's definitely like doing like he's making a really like profound like influence on my sound right now.
Right on.
So
yeah, I want to hear whatever you guys are working on together. I'm excited to hear how that turns out.
Yeah, we got a song. Hopefully, it's coming out pretty soon, a few weeks.
Right on.
You gotta consult him a little bit more and just like putting the final touches on it. But
awesome.
Keene for sure.
Cool. I am going to give a quick shout out to Amaricia Comedy. It's spelled like America, but with an I before the last day. She put on this showcase last night at Fresh and Meaty in Carson. It was a little burger spot in Carson. It was packed full of people. There was like 5 comedians performing, 2 musical artists, and 2 poets. Yep, that's the word. People performing poetry, which I think I just did with all them P's in that last sentence. It was fantastic. I was shocked by how good it was. I was like, it's going to be at a burger place. It's going to be small. It's not going to be a great crowd, but like everyone was into it. Everybody was there to have a good time. They may or may not have been selling jungle juice at the counter. I don't think it was at the counter. Somebody may have had it in their pocket. But
what kind of jungle is this?
I heard it was really good. My friend was like, this isn't jungle juice, it's something. He used some other term, the death juice or something. He was like, it's a lot, and apparently it was delicious. So yeah, shout out Amaricia Comedy for putting that together. Yo, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Of course, bro.
I really appreciate it. This was a fun time, man. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
See you around, y'all.
I'm feeling blessed. Tell me, how are you? Just let me know if there's anything that I could do. Yeah, I'm feeling blessed. Tell me, how are you? Ain't no button change the world like them servants do. working on myself. I've been working with a group of homies, working on the health. And the little bit that I can do, I hope it really helps. And it may seem superficial, but if you're close enough to tell, I've been flourishing as well. I've been praying with some homies that I thought would never pray with me. I'm all ears if you got something to say to me. Try and give my life to servitude like no agency. That's how my time became fully booked like no vacancy. And that's that life that's worth living. I'm giving up anything I have that's worth giving. That's including all them power, all them drugs, and all them women. In their place I'm putting all of my commitments. Like Tuesdays up for breakfast, we meeting up at the Denny's. The weeknights are all about making my clothes sweaty. Saturdays up for training, I'm getting these boys ready for battles. They fighting t-shirts cause armor is too heavy. Like, I'm feeling blessed. Tell me how are you? Just let me know if there's anything that I could do. Yeah, I'm feeling blessed. Tell me how are you? Ain't nobody change the world like them certain do.